Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report, still under lockdown day something 130, 140, I don't know. I've had a lot of haircuts all in the pandemic. That's how I'm counting this. I'm 5 haircuts in. What about you, Francesca Fiorentini? How many haircuts have you had during the pandemic?
I mean that I'm legally allowed to speak about? None.
You know, the funny thing is someone else referenced illegal haircuts yesterday to me. Is it really illegal? You can't?
No, it's not illegal, but it's very much this like open and close in California. It's like you can't. So there's definitely someone going around who's got like half of their hair done because of how much the closure laws have been changing. Yeah. I am 1 haircut in, and I wish it were more.
Okay, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Well, look, I'm happy to have you here. Mondays tend to be big news days, and today definitely is. We've got some updates on the fight for enhanced unemployment benefits, that fight being between the working class and our entire government, which is fun. We've got updates on voting. Will you be able to? Stay tuned. And, you know, Trump's got a new doctor he's targeting. That's fun. Fauci, that's so July. August has a new one. So we're going to talk about that. And the Army and the rest of the armed forces, I should say, are back to streaming on Twitch, but not recruiting. We're going to take a look at the evidence and see whether that's actually true or not. Okay, but before even more before the news, today is Monday, August 3rd, which means today is the day that you have an opportunity to watch a special screening of the documentary film Parkland Rising. That will be available at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, and it's a film that follows the stories of the high school students and their families and their fight for gun reform in the wake of that tragic shooting at the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High. That'll be available at those times, youtube.com/theyoungturks and at tyt.com/live. I spoke with Fred Guttenberg on the show last week about it, and today is the day it's available. Last week, Donald Trump raised the possibility of just delaying the whole election thing, and we all sort of get why that's something he's saying. It's complex, but it's a combination of his own inadequacies, fears about his performance in the election, and the fact that he'd love to dispense with this whole democracy thing. But that's what makes it so interesting that one day after he said that we might have to delay the election, the White House condemned Hong Kong for their decision to delay an election, lacking a bit of that moral gravitas in the immediate aftermath of saying you plan to do it. But yeah, they don't want Hong Kong to. And I agree. We should have elections. I just don't think the White House has much, moral high ground on this.
I mean, it's the same do as I say, not as I do, or don't do as I say. Whatever it is, American exceptionalism at its finest with Trump. And it's so interesting because, especially when it comes to China, I think we've seen so many right-wingers laud the Hong Kong protesters and say, lift them up, and wow, they're fighting for democracy and all this. And that very well may be true, but then not extend that same analysis to Americans who are marching in the streets for Black lives, who are marching for civil rights, who are marching to be able to vote, freely. Suddenly, no, we don't like democracy anymore. We don't like protesters anymore. No, now umbrellas are weapons, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Everyone's an anarchist, etc. Mm-hmm. The thing about this, though, I mean, we all know Trump has said that he's jealous of Chinese leaders. Like, he's jealous of President Xi Jinping for extending his rule indefinitely.
Yeah.
I believe it was lifting term limits or just extending his own presidency. And he was like, well, I wish we could do that. Remember when he said that? So it's a very cute,
the joke.
Yeah. Oh, no,
he
it was
was
a joke.
Joking.
Good joke.
Very funny. Yeah. And let's have some more jokes because I like comedy. That's Francesca, great comedian. We have you on to bring the laughs, but Trump is also bringing the laughs because he has another joke for us. This was very recently. Let's see. We got it right here. He tweeted, in an illegal late night coup, Nevada's clubhouse governor, I don't know what that means, made it impossible for Republicans to win the state. Ooh, dramatic. Post office could never handle the traffic of mail-in votes without preparation, using COVID to steal the state. See you in court. So that is like universal mail-in voting, basically. Because Trump seems to have forgotten, but we're in a pandemic. And it's not safe, and it's probably going to be no safer on election day than it is today. So they are making it easier for people to be able to vote, which seems long overdue in a representative democracy. But he's not a fan of it, and he thinks that if people can easily vote without exposing themselves to a deadly pathogen, Republicans, in his words, can never win the state again. Yeah. And so he plans to sue to stop the expansion of the vote. That's what the president is going to do. Hilarious. I'm not sure what the punchline is, but I know it's a joke. The setup sometimes is more valuable than the punchline.
I mean, our American democracy is pretty much a joke at this point, but exactly right. I mean, this is what Republicans have tried to do, but they're just a little minimally more skillful than Trump. So they love to suppress the vote. They love to close down polling stations. But Trump is openly, like, again, saying the quiet part out loud and being like, we're not going to win. And everyone's like, shh. This is where I think journalism needs to play a, bigger role. Every single question from now until November to the president or to Kayleigh McEnany should be around. Look, we've all heard the president say that if mail-in voting were universal, were in every state, if there was more money for it, that Republicans wouldn't win. What is your response to that? Are you trying to rig an election? Well, do you believe that you can't win on merit alone? Is it because there is no plan for a second term?
Yeah. That seems fair. We actually have sort of a question like that with Kayleigh that we're going to play in a little bit, but I want to stick right now on Trump's comedy about, the election being theoretical. Like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't, maybe we'll delay and all of that. So here is a video. It's not Trump, but it is White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows being asked by John Dickerson about whether Trump had asked his chief of staff about the possibility of delaying the election. Let's see if that question receives an actual answer.
To the next question, did the president ask you or anybody in the administration to look into the idea of delaying the election day?
Listen, all of this that we're talking about comes down to one thing: universal mail-in ballots. That is not a good idea for the country. We don't have to look any further than New York to see what a debacle that mail-in ballots have been when we have weeks and weeks of delay of who the winner is. Can you imagine if that is with the president of the United States? So as we look at this. So he has not looked at delaying any election. What we will do is, if we try to transform this and start mailing in ballots all across the country, all 50 states, what we will see is a delay because they're just not equipped to handle it.
So, and we're going to return to them not being equipped to handle it. But there, Chief of Staff is asked, were you asked by Trump to delay the election? And he doesn't actually respond. He starts talking about mail-in ballots because this entire thing on the right, Trump and other elected Republicans, basically 99%, whatever Trump all of a sudden has his position, they immediately pivot. Like, was Mark Meadows, violently against mail-in ballots 2 years ago? I don't know. I kind of doubt it, though. But now the default position has to be that even if you yourself always vote by mail, you hate it and it's unfair and it's going to ruin American democracy. And so I don't find that to be at all reassuring if I want to have the election actually happen on the 3rd.
No, that was a very pointed question, too. That was did the president ask you to delay the election? It's like, are you cheating on me? Oh, well, I mean, what is marriage anyway? Look, here's the thing, that marriage can be, fluctuating in definition and we have to give and grow within a relationship. Yeah, it's for life. And, yeah, she started it, but what? He's evading the question and slipped in there a little bit of a no, but not a strong enough definitive no. And I think the follow-up question, of course, is, so would you rather Americans die, more Americans die, than be able to vote by mail, right? Is that worth it to you? And I think the answer is yes. Either die or don't vote. Yeah. Put yourself at risk, or don't vote. And this is the sad thing, John, I think we know this is true, is that after Election Day, and I don't imagine COVID is going to be under control by November, sadly, there will be a spike in cases because people will have waited in long lines and put themselves at risk. And of course, there will be people not wearing masks in those long lines. Yeah. It's awful. But yet these are the lengths. I mean, greater lengths have been gone to for the right to vote and to be able to vote. I think people know the stakes right now. It's just so upsetting that Republicans can be so bald-faced about their wish to suppress the vote and or send people to die.
And look, I would say, they always imply that, leftists and all that are biased in this. And I have to admit, I am biased. Even if it wasn't a pandemic, I would still support more mail-in ballots because you know what? We should have had it forever. Working class Americans shouldn't have to hope that they can get a little bit of time off between their jobs so they can run down and vote and probably line up in lines that'll last 3 or 4 hours because the sorts of areas that many Americans vote in, the polling places have been stripped away and it's virtually impossible. And it certainly can't be a holiday, the presidential election. Why would somebody get off something for that? So no, even if there wasn't a pandemic, even if there was no risk, people should be able to vote as easily as possible. Registration should be as easy as it is possible to make it. If I can press one button and order my Domino's pizza, the exact same order as last time, one button and it comes, I think we can make voting a little bit simpler, okay? And so, yeah.
I want to track the ballot then too.
Exactly.
Now your ballot is being counted.
Yeah.
Your ballot is being opened.
Yeah.
Your ballot is being tampered with. Oh my God.
These ballot initiatives are fresh and hot.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Kayleigh McEnany, mouthpiece for the president. So she's following everything he says about the fact that mail-in ballots, they might not be safe. We're really worried about that. And we all know that the states are going to need help. So are they providing that? Well, she was asked that question.
Is focused on is making sure that our election is not riddled with voting fraud and that the timetable is not hung up here. There are several lawsuits that the campaign is engaged on, and I would point you to the campaign for specifics
that doesn't answer my question, though. My question is, what is the White House doing to get more resources for funding and staff to make sure, as the president says, that it will be a secure and safe election?
Well, as you know, Peter, states run their elections, and it is up to states to make sure that they have.
So yeah, that's very clear. They're asking for more money. They need it. So we cut out a little bit, and what it is because Kayleigh McEnany, I'm gonna be nice about this. We saw her binders. All she does is she hears a noun and then she looks for that tab and then she reads a paragraph that she's printed. There's no reason to have her there. So she did that on this. He said, well, what resources are you making available? And she said, as someone said in the Washington Post, New York is largely to blame for their own problems. And we know that states are responsible. And he's like, no, I get it. Yeah, the states sometimes make mistakes. That's why the federal government needs to give them as many resources as they think are necessary because of how important the stakes are in this election. And she had no response to that. They're not going to provide any new resources. And we already know that in all of these different negotiations over the past few months, the concerns have been raised about, will we be able to have a safe election? 6 months out from the election, will we be able to have a safe election? And the response has always been, especially from the Republicans, I guess, maybe we'll see. I don't know. And that's what we got from her there. They're preemptively saying the states are responsible if there are mistakes, and we won't do anything because they want there to be chaos on election day. That would be the
Yes.
best case scenario.
Yes.
They want to be able to say, we don't have to abide by whatever happens in this election, and they're setting that situation up.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and this is what's so interesting about Republicans co-opting what should be a Democrat line, right? And the fact that, again, we don't have the opposition that we need to confront this, party of death right now. But if we did, I mean, when was the last time that an election went to the Republicans because of one state's ridiculous system and that failed completely because we left it to the states? That set in motion the George W. Bush administration, 2 international wars and some, a giant debt because of those wars, Barack Obama and then Donald Trump, so some good with some bad, but come on, I mean, this is the thing. It's Democrats are the ones who should be saying, actually, this only benefits you. We know, we've seen you try and play dirty tricks before. You've played these dirty tricks before. We should be the ones to be concerned about election fraud.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from the highest levels. But you're absolutely right. They want the chaos. And they want sort of the cynicism. I think that's the other thing is it's the internet, right? If you sow enough cynicism and doubt, then I don't know, maybe were there children in cages ever? That was just a rumor. Did you ever see video? I didn't.
Exactly.
What about the moon landing?
Really? It's way up there. Doesn't seem likely. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Sometimes we're just really in sync. So you brought up, well, look at what happens when there's election chaos and the Supreme Court gets involved and effectively decides for themselves who's going to win the election and then all of what comes from that. So you bring that up. I talked about it last week on the show. The thing is, we bring it up as a cautionary tale, but not everyone is citing it as a cautionary tale. I want to go now to one more video. This is Governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, bringing up that decision as hey, keep it in mind, and wouldn't it be great sort of thing.
President should accept the results no matter what.
Well, the president should accept the results, just like presidents in the past have accepted the results. I mean, you remember Bush versus Gore. It went to the United States Supreme Court. There's always issues that happen that are appropriate to reserved for seeing what the situation is, but we shouldn't be fretting about it in advance.
Exactly. So he's saying, no, he should totally accept it, but things happen. Remember 2000? Wasn't that swell? That was what he was saying. And he's effectively, not that he has the power or whatever, but that's what's floating out there, is that maybe the Supreme Court can possibly save Trump from what looks like is going to be a disastrous election. And all of what they're saying about mail-in votes and all of that is not an actual expression of fear that it won't work. It's that they want people to believe that they can't be trusted. And so on election day, when we get the in-person votes, if it looks good for Trump, he can try to shut down the count, which the Supreme Court has already done in the past. As Asa Hutchinson said, it would be too much chaos if we were to wait 2 days or a week to find out the results. So let's just take what we have right now, which, by the way, is good for Trump. And our only hope at that point is that the Supreme Court doesn't rule on their side, which, good luck, because it's a right-wing Supreme Court, so they just might, and that Joe Biden doesn't throw in the towel instantly to help the nation heal. While its democracy dies, but Al Gore already threw the thing away at the first sign of trouble, and Joe Biden seems like more of an appeaser than Al Gore was back in 2000, so all of this is an absolute disaster.
I don't know. I think Pop still's got it in him to fight for this election. I think he'll be put it here.
If Biden fought, he would box like this.
Yeah, he's definitely, and just in tall socks and an undershirt.
But a shirt that's blue and white stripes. Yeah, maybe.
It's so sad. But yeah, maybe. It depends on what kind of morning it is, how the grape nuts were. We don't know. But yes. Yeah, right there. Exactly. You're exactly right, John. They're hoping it would be thrown to the Supreme Court. And once again, I think it's on all of us. I stand by this. I know people on the left and progressives, we can be so cynical because we see how horribly unfair a two-party system is. But in this case, when we're going into November, we can't be the cynics. The Republican Party is the most cynical party in all of history. Like, seriously, they are cynical. Donald Trump was a cynical vote. Don't ever get that twisted. It was not a vote for hope. It was a cynical, like, take it all, destroy it all vote. We are now the party of moral values. We are now the party of family values. We are now the party of life. We are now the party that wants a future for our children. Yeah. We have to really draw that line in the sand and remember that we can't afford cynicism right now. We have to be clear-headed, know what the fight is going to be, vote for Biden and fight like hell to make sure that he can be pulled to the left, actually pass policies that will help the majority / all of Americans.
Yeah. Fight like hell. Then, after Election Day, we'll get really drunk that night, sleep it off, take 2 or 3 days, and then continue fighting like hell. That's what we're going to have to do. In the words of Zane, fisticuffs, good sir. That's what we need. We need fisticuffs, good sir. From the beginning, as the pandemic began to cause shutdowns that caused massive loss of jobs, the White House has been concerned about one thing and one thing only when it comes to helping out the American people: that they don't get too much help, so that those lazy bastards start staying at home instead of running back into the pandemic breach as soon as they're told to. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow told CNN back in June that a measure of enhanced unemployment, $600 extra a week, was a disincentive to work, adding, "We're paying people not to work." And he was hardly the last. Stephen Mnuchin says we're paying people more to stay home than to work. That was just in the last couple of days. And he said that despite the fact that we now know, according to big studies, that it's not actually the case. New study out of Yale shows that in the aggregate, the expanded benefits, quote, neither encouraged layoffs during the pandemic's onset nor deterred people from returning to work once businesses began reopening. And in particular, the report says workers facing larger expansions in unemployment insurance benefits have returned to their previous jobs over time at similar rates as others. We find no evidence that more generous benefits disincentivize work either at the onset of the expansion or as firms look to return to business over time. In future research, it will be important to assess whether the same results hold when states move to reopen. And there was another study. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago said those currently collecting benefits search more than twice as intensely as those who have exhausted their benefits. That was published back 2 months ago. But they're not going to allow multiple studies to show that these enhanced unemployment benefits are not only necessary to keep people afloat, but also are not causing them to sit lazily at home playing their Xboxes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Republicans think that a steady check from the government disincentivizes work because they receive a steady check from the government and they do no work. So they would know. Yeah. All right. The only time a government check disincentivizes work is when you're in Congress. We've all seen it. They don't do. Sorry. Oh, God. My bad, John. Bleep me out next time.
Okay.
Here's the thing. When you talk about disincentivizing work, when Republicans are super, super into that talking point, it's really to punish people. It's to completely impose their ideology that, once again, somehow we're to blame for our own problems. We're to blame for the virus, right? And so constantly, it's not that they actually believe that it's disincentivizing work. It's that they believe that you should feel bad and you should believe that you're not working hard enough, that you're lazy, that you deserve everything like eviction, like unemployment. You deserve all of this, right? Yeah. It's a cruelty. It's once again an ideology of cruelty.
Exactly.
Sorry for the S-bomb.
No worries. We're gonna clean it up. And as people are talking about in the chat, let's remind people that those who would like to get these enhanced unemployment benefits, again, for economic, catastrophe that they didn't cause, are taxpayers. And where does that money come from? the taxes that they've paid. They are being handed back their own money. That's why we pay some of these taxes, to take care of that. But it is so clear from people like Steve Mnuchin that they think, no, this is our money. It's supposed to go to military contractors and our buddies and things like that. Oh God, having to give you $600 a week, that doesn't help me at all. Even though it would. It is very helpful long term for the health of the economy that we not have destitute millions being thrown out of their homes through the eviction crisis that is boiling up right now, and losing everything because, again, they can't go safely back to work. But that whole government thing is being buttressed by a long-standing, months-old push by Fox News to amplify the same message, with just recently a Fox News anchor saying that expiring unemployment benefits might cause people to actually go back to work. So the fact that our government took a 3-day weekend and allowed both the eviction crisis to kick off and the unemployment benefits to lapse, necessitating that even if they're renewed, it will take weeks for that to actually happen, is secretly a good thing because, again, studies be damned, this is necessary for people to finally get off their tookuses and get back to work, which we know is not true.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and we've seen Pelosi say, that Republicans are simply not focused on the virus. Like, they do not care about actually fixing this. So I as much as I think there are problems with the HEROES Act and what was passed in Congress, I do think it is a far cry better than what Republicans are proposing, which is, again, cutting these unemployment benefits by, I believe it's 2/3. But how do you negotiate with an entire party that will not face reality? How are you supposed to say, don't you get that people need to stay at home and they should be incentivized to stay at home to keep themselves safe and everyone else safe so we all don't die?
Yeah.
And they won't accept that. So, once again, capitalists don't value your life. They don't value your labor. And here is the proof.
Yep, and we're seeing it every day. They're still it's 1:30 Eastern time. They're still on break over the weekend. In a half an hour, they'll finally return because it wasn't enough that they had a 3-day weekend. They also sort of got an extra half day on Monday. And we can look forward to talking all week on the show about the arguments back and forth to maybe start the process where people will get unemployment yet again, as every day more and more people lose their jobs. And if you are unemployed right now and you've been relying on this money, you're going to have a gap of literally weeks at the best, in the best case scenario, before you finally get those again. Absolute disaster. Didn't have to happen, but that is, after all, the theme of 2020. For weeks now, Donald Trump and his goons have been going after Dr. Fauci because Fauci made the fatal error of becoming popular in the eyes of the American people. But that's sort of getting to be old, and they need something new. They need Donald Trump to set himself apart from any medical expert, anything like that, even ones that have been incredibly deferential to him, like, for instance, Deborah Birx, who appeared recently with Dana Bash, and Dana Bash pretty much laid into her. Take a look.
The question that everybody out there has is why? Why did this happen? Why was the government, particularly, you're the coordinator for the federal response, why weren't you able to stop this from spreading and continuing to spread uncontrollably as it is now? We've been talking about outbreaks across the Sun Belt. You're warning now about a resurgence in states across the Midwest. In recent days, you've named 20, we're putting them up on the screen, 20 of the 50 states as places you're watching. So are we in a new phase of the pandemic? And if so, what are you going to do to change course?
I think those are two very critical questions because we are in a new phase. And that's why I really wanted to make it clear to the American people. It's why we started putting out government.
Try to get a handle on this because what I'm trying to express to you, which is something that I know that you're hearing, people are panicked. People are worried. People don't understand why this is seeming to be completely out of control. Johns Hopkins University said, quote, this week, the United States is not currently on course to get control of the epidemic. It's time to reset. A couple of other medical agencies, associations said similar. So is it time for the federal government to reset?
Well, I think the federal government reset about 5 to 6 weeks ago when we saw this starting to happen across.
Okay, so yes, there were cuts made. If you want her rambling for 45 seconds at a time without really saying anything, there's some of that available online. But she did acknowledge that things are really bad, that the government did have to reset 5 or 6 weeks ago. I don't really think that happened, but Trump isn't going to want it to be acknowledged whether it happened or not. And she acknowledged that things are likely to get bad, that there are like 20 out of the 50 states are expected to be new hotspots for the virus, just as the 4 main ones right now start to get it under control. New ones are picking up the slack. And so we're going to have his response in just a little bit. Spoiler alert, he didn't like it. Francesca, what do you think about Birx now being like the replacement for Fauci, both in terms of a representative for the government, but also for his rage?
I will remind viewers about why Birx became Trump's right-hand woman and doctor in the first place, which is because he, quote, thought she was elegant. A bunch of people, a bunch of CDC officials, a bunch of other professionals were telling him, look, we got to get this under control. We got to get this under control. What's going, what's the plan? What's the plan? He was like, I don't know. Oh, look, she's got a scarf. Like that. Yeah. That is how it went down. So it's, and again, I don't want to throw Dr. Birx under the bus here. Like, I think it is an unenviable position to have to be a mouthpiece with a brain for this brainless mouthpiece. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? You're in a position of privilege. You could potentially, thread this needle, the needle that no one has managed to thread in this entire time. And that being like someone who wants to do a little bit of good in the Trump administration, just a little bit of not harm. Yeah. Is truly never able to do it. And then they go off and write an entire book about how all they wanted to do was bomb Iran. And yeah,
I think I know. I think I know who you're talking about there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. And look, she said a few other things that were critical before we give his attack. Let me read a couple of these. She said that what we're seeing today is different from March and April. It is extraordinarily widespread. He doesn't want that. He believes that we only have cases because we have tests, even though hypothetically you need to have both tests and actual virus infections. But anyway, she said that. He didn't like it. And if you have an outbreak in your rural area or your city, you need to really consider wearing a mask at home, assuming that you're positive if you have individuals in your home with comorbidities. And he's not going to like that either, because he now flips day by day on whether he begrudgingly is okay with masks or it's a plot from, demonic ethereal witches to impregnate you in the night. And so, like I said, he started off the morning attacking her, saying, "So crazy Nancy Pelosi said horrible things about Dr. Deborah Birx, going after her because she was too positive on the very good job we are doing on combating the China virus, including vaccines and therapeutics. In order to counter Nancy, Deborah took the bait and hit us. Pathetic!" And he knows pathetic. And so, yeah, she is now pathetic because after being attacked by Nancy Pelosi in her recent appearances, like with Dana Bash, she is more critical of the response. I would argue she's more critical of the response because the response is failing. And understand, this is Deborah Birx. This is like a woman who, in late March, said, "I've never seen anyone who absorbs medical information like Donald Trump does." She defaced herself, before the country, took all of her credibility and threw it away for him, perhaps vainly, naively thinking that Donald Trump would be appeased by that. But he's not. Smaug doesn't want a certain amount of gold. He wants more than he has. And so...
No, yeah. I mean, girl, jump ship, write that book, sell it before November. It's like, yes, Trump really is that dumb. My take, Mm-hmm. I'm so sick of it. But I do want to just remind everybody, that syphilitic brain tweet has very real life consequences for someone like Deborah Birx, for Anthony Fauci, who I believe travels with security now because of death threats and because of, all of the online hate and everything that he's received because of the way that the president has treated him. And now, once again, we know how Trump treats women, and we know how women are disproportionately impacted by his tweets and his words, etc. Yeah. So, once again, look out, Deborah Birx.
Exactly. And I want to give you just a little bit more because we were on Tone Watch, week 3. Trump's got a new tone, so let's see what that new tone is. First of all, he's attacking Dr. Deborah Birx, so man, he really doesn't like doctors. He's okay with Dr. Evil, Dr. Doom, he's okay with. Other doctors, not a big fan. So in that burst of tweeting that he's done over the last day, he also said, cases up because of big testing. Much of our country is doing very well. Open the schools, because he has a hunger for more deaths, and now he wants the sweet death of the young. And so he said that. He also said, with the exception of New York and a few other locations, we've done much better than most other countries in dealing with the China virus. Many of these countries are now having a major second wave. Yeah, the other countries are, not us. The fake news is working overtime to make the USA and me look as bad as possible. As we passed 157,000 deaths, and God only knows how many people with absolutely shredded lungs and hearts and other long-term organ damage from having survived this illness. No, it's the other countries that are doing poorly. We're good. We just have the most deaths ever, anywhere.
Bad
New
for the
tone.
soul. All this. Don't read those tweets. Bad
Yeah,
for the soul.
that's
just
true.
imagine how bad they are.
Exactly. It's like,
I
yeah.
mean, that's what we're supposed to do. I get it, John. This is a news show, but I feel like when I read that, a part of me dies.
Yeah. It's probably a part
And-
you need.
Uh?
I think you could use it. Yeah.
I know. I don't want to just, it's fully just like, "Ee." Like every time he capitalizes words that
Oh,
like he
God.
shouldn't, I was like, "Ee, oh. There goes my innocence. Flap, 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 flap.
Yeah. No amount of clapping is going to save Francesca when she sees something like that. I gave a lot of credit a couple of weeks ago to several Fox News personalities for pushing for mask wearing. Foremost of those, perhaps, was oddly Jeanine Pirro, who posted multiple photos of herself wearing masks in public and getting attacked brutally. You might remember this photo is the one where in the full photo you can see that on her phone she's a topless picture of Chrissy Teigen. But anyway, we're moving on. And others. And she was just getting attacked and attacked and attacked for doing that. But even Sean Hannity did it. And I gave them a lot of credit. And you know why? Because I'm an idiot. Because I'm stupid and I never learn, and they pulled the football out from under me. Yeah, they temporarily told people to wear masks, but it didn't catch on the right. The right still thinks it's a plot by Bill Gates and demons, and it gives you, according to Louis Gohmert, it gives you coronavirus. So they're now backtracking. And so here is Judge Jeanine Pirro talking about masks.
Joe Biden is afraid of him. He'll use a pandemic. I think it's hysterical when he and his wife come out together and they're wearing their masks. They've been housed together since the pandemic started, and they're wearing masks together when they come out. What is the point of the mask? The point of the mask is to basically kind of dehumanize. It's to, frighten people. You don't know who's behind the mask. It's to give people cover. It's exactly what the anarchists and the protesters need. It strikes fear. There's something going on. There are all kinds of subliminal messages to that mask. And, he's always in that black mask.
God, I'm an idiot. I mean, she is too.
Reach. Just like, oh, she's off prompter. She's off prompter and doesn't have a good reason why masks are bad.
What if
like
you're off
when
prompter?
I go to Disneyland and Chip and Dale are there with their masks and they're so sinister. I don't know. There's something. Have you ever seen a clown? Clowns are mean. Yeah. They're all just like, what is she doing? What is she actually doing?
Yeah.
Just reaching for some BS excuse. Oh yeah, Biden is evil because he wears a black mask. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'm gonna just briefly say this has nothing to do with anything that she said, but sometimes I'll get really drunk and I will try to tell people about why I think there should be a homeward bound cinematic universe and how awesome that idea that is. But it's hard to express because when I'm doing it, I'm really drunk. I don't have a teleprompter, but I'm really drunk. Unrelated story, has nothing to do with anything. But anyway, so with Jeanine Pirro,
I think she would have been much better if she had been a little. I don't think she was there. I mean, unlike most of her clips.
Yeah. You don't think
She's
that she
a
was
little
off
too
prompter,
sober. It
but on the sauce?
would have come to her faster if she had been drunk.
Maybe that's true. Look, here's what she's doing. She's grifting. That's all it is. She tried to be responsible, and if she got applauded and followed on Twitter and handed opportunities as a result of being responsible. I think plenty of these right-wingers would do that. If they could be moral and get paid, they'd do it, but the pay comes first. And so if you have to be irresponsible and tell people to do things that are going to get them killed to stay relevant, then you're going to do that. Because not all of the Fox News personalities switched over to being for masks. Laura Ingraham never did. Tucker Carlson never did. And they're the popular ones. And so she wants to be one of the popular ones. And so she's going to tell people to effectively kill themselves with a fatal illness. That's what she's doing. And coming up with ridiculous things about how scary it is. Yeah, Joe Biden, he's basically Antifa. That's what he is. No, he's an elderly man with health problems who doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
And so that's what
she's got to keep them, the ones and twos up or whatever these are.
Fisticuffs, good sir.
The fisticuffs. Can I just say, though, that Jeanine Pirro, when she did try, I've never loved a picture of her harder than seeing Jeanine Pirro with her mouth covered. Like, there's a part of me that just went,
Mm-hmm.
And I just imagine, and if we could just get, I'm sure someone out there is good with Photoshop, all of the Fox News hosts with a mask on.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would just, we need to look at those photos. When you imagine a glorious day when Fox News is disassembled and sold for parts, and just breathe that sigh of relief, because no one needs to hear anything that comes out of their mouths ever.
That is definitely true. Yeah, so Chris Hughes super chatted, Pirro is the final boss Karen we have to face after beating the minor Karens.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, just wear it. You know what? The subliminal messages, don't care, protects you from a virus. That's what it is. You know the subliminal message I get when I'm walking down the street and someone's coming towards me and they're wearing a mask, the message I get is, oh, that person doesn't want to infect me with a deadly virus. And that's a nice message. By the way, I just want to share this thing that I saw. Sarah Z on Twitter was spreading this. You might remember from Princess Bride. Why are you wearing a mask? And he responds, no, it's just that they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future. And it turned out to be true. Princess Bride, ahead of its time, as always. Anyway, that's
I
Jeanine
wish
Pirro.
that we could wear Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle masks, like just over the eyes, like just straight Zorro.
That's cool. Yeah.
Man, that'd be so much cooler.
It would.
Like if only the coronavirus infected like the parts around our temples, and we could just all look like dope superheroes, but instead
cool.
we look like,
yeah,
like we're trying to fend off a killer virus.
Yeah. Although I have to say, like,
I do look like a ninja. I will say I do sincerely look like a ninja.
You wear a black mask?
Huh?
What
I have a
color
black
mask?
mask and it's way too big, and I look like a ninja, and i.e. I look like I could get beat in like 5 seconds. Like someone could just like pow pow, done.
Yeah. By the way, if you want like a cool mask, I thought randomly, I wonder if they have masks that look like the side of World War II era planes, like the jaw. And they do. Go on Etsy. They have everything. If you want a shark, you can be a shark. You can be a real shark. You can be the shark from Finding Nemo. They have everything, by the way. Etsy's all over it, so you can get cool masks. And I want to get a dragon one at some point. You can get ones that look like your own face.
That'd be really, the dragon one's cool. I mean, don't go outside with it. You're a total nerd, but like, it's cool.
I'm gonna. But anyway, and by the way, I don't know if this is a thing that's starting to develop, and I know it's weird to say, but like, like in some cultures, certain things are covered up, and in other cultures, things aren't covered up, and that obviously has long-term impact on what is seen as attractive and mysterious and all of that.
Yes.
Like when you're walking around, you can't see people's faces. It's mysterious. You wonder what their faces look like.
Yep.
I don't know. And I
yeah,
want to
it's
see.
a new dating show.
Guess that face.
The Masked Single.
Okay. Exactly. I would actually watch that as long as Sarah Palin wasn't on it. What is going to happen to the Republican Party if Donald Trump loses? We don't know for sure, but we did perhaps get a little bit of a preview not long ago when Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump Jr. attacked top House Republican Liz Cheney as insufficiently loyal to Trump, saying that she was effectively sabotaging the president, and it's disloyalty and it's backstabbing, and we're the true Trump fans. And pre-election, that says to him that you can trust us, but post-election, it's about posturing. It's about trying to gobble up the Trump base after Trump can no longer hold elected office effectively. And so those camps might end up playing out. And interviews with over a dozen Republican lawmakers and aides conducted by Politico apparently are showing that. They say there's a growing sense that if Trump loses the White House and the GOP fails to make meaningful gains in the House, which seems pretty certain, and if he loses, it will definitely be certain, the fight for the future of the party will play out in challenges across leadership. They say that the party's long simmering divides were largely papered over after Donald Trump won the White House back in 2016, but that truce might fall apart, and of course it will. I mean, effectively, all of the big ideological differences that they had were just set aside by, oh, Trump is the thing, we all love Trump now, no matter how, vicious we were to him before he was a candidate. But they still hypothetically have preferences. Ted Cruz, I know he thinks deep down he's gonna finally come back someday, stronger than ever. I'm just biding my time. And he doesn't realize that at his core is weakness, surrounded by a big shell of weakness. The core is basically the same as the shell. And so all of that is simmering in the background. And so if he does lose, Francesca, what do you think some of the shakeup is gonna look like? What are some of the effects you believe you're likely to see?
I'm just excited for it. I can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but I'm very excited. There'll be the full-blown, the Q party. There'll be the yes, we accept Latinos and African Americans party. I think Romney plays a role. There's a little bit of a Romney revival. Guy Smiley back at it again. I am looking forward to the destruction of the Republican Party, and I love seeing them on their back heels. I think it's really important. And again, opportunity for the Democrats to finally, go on the offense and play hard and do what Republicans have done. But, you see Mitch McConnell just recently saying, if you need to distance yourself from Trump, do it, right? Yeah. To candidates right now. That is a very different tune than 6 months ago. And I think that started to happen after the 2018 midterm election, when you realize that hitching your wagon to Trump is going straight off that cliff. So I'm excited. I am excited to peer down onto the ashes of the Republican Party and watch them try to claim, and this is going to be great, y'all, claim that they were the ones who stood up to Trump.
Yeah.
Oh, but I was working on a manuscript about it, but I didn't manage to publish it, right? And we have to bring those receipts. And look, I'm not saying that a more cuddly conservatism is out there. God, I hope. I truly do. I mean, but first there has to be a little bit of accountability.
Yeah, I wonder if there will be any. I mean, look, it's not like the Republican Party has changed in some ways over let's say the last 20 years. You did have the Tea Party, but now, so in the beginning, the Tea Party wins that they had made the party look a little bit different. But how many of those people still really have anything to do with the Tea Party? Didn't it kind of? It seems like it just evaporated into the Republican Party. The things that George W. Bush was pushing for. Are they really that fundamentally different than John McCain was going to hypothetically, or Mitt Romney, or Trump has? They're against immigration. They want to cut taxes. They don't want you to have health care. There's a lot of through lines back to the beginning of when I was really paying attention to politics. And they always say around the time of an election, there's going to be this reckoning. After they lost to Obama, it was, oh my God, we have to figure out how are we going to get Latino voters to like us? They never did that. Nope. All they do is look for the next person, the next guy, really. The next guy that they're going to line up behind. And Trump was that guy. And if he's not the guy next time, then it's going to be Don Jr., or it's going to be Tucker Carlson, or it's going to be Matt Gaetz, or whatever. It's not, they have not actually come to grips with the need to change what they are pushing for in terms of policy to bring in new voters, because they long ago gave up on winning fair elections democratically. They have doubled down on trying to limit how many people can vote and trying to make elections able to be won by a minority of the population. And so since they're doing even more of that lately, why would there be an ideological reckoning, or, maybe trying to change up some of their values, come up with new... They still don't have a healthcare plan. Trump said 2 weeks ago, remember, I'm going to have the healthcare plan, and now he doesn't have it, and he never will. Yeah, I don't see a real reckoning happening. There will be leadership change-ups. there'll be they'll be changing the deck chairs on the Titanic and all of that, because they're all aggressively ambitious individuals, but they're also hollow shells.
But I think, I realize I'm painting like a very rosy picture of what could potentially happen once Trump is out of office, right? And that, if only a Mitt Romney-like, John McCain-like Republican Party were still salvageable. But I think you are right that the Trump Jr., the Matt Gaetz, the grifters will take advantage of a base that they have only further radicalized by the last 4 years, right? And now it's out of control. Now it owns them, right? It runs the show. It being, again, the 5G race monger nut jobs. And now that you're right, like there is no healthcare plan. There's not really trade. It is all about white nationalism and the race war. It's about, low income housing. It's about protecting the suburbs. It's about whiteness. It's the last gasp of whiteness. And I don't think they're going to go down easily, but they definitely are becoming more and more fringe. And I think it's important to out people like Matt Gaetz, who is a total grifter. Matt Gaetz was in favor of immigration reform. Matt Gaetz, when he saw that his appearances on Fox News were going viral and everything that he said, the more extreme things that he would say would get him more attention, that's when he became, a MAGA chud.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I really do think you laid it out. The 70% of the party post-Trump is going to be white identity politics, and it will be, I think it's already pretty much just give me whatever Candace Owens said earlier today, or Ben Shapiro. That's what we stand for as a party. And in fact, can you get them in here in Congress? Can we talk to Candace Owens or whatever? Or Tucker Carlson said, some mix of the two. It's just going to be whatever weird thing they're focused on. That's what the party will be focused on. Generally around white identity politics and white supremacy. And then like 30% whatever Q is at that point. Really. And I know that sounds crazy, and I hope that I'm 100% wrong, but it doesn't seem to be going away. And they are more openly embracing it with every passing day, including members of Trump's family and politicians. They're just openly accepting, no, that thing about the underground plot to unveil a centuries-old pedophile ring. Yeah, that's real, and they found a lot of good things. And they're going to have to try to appeal to those people to win primaries, if not general elections. And I don't know that it'll work. Hopefully it won't. They'll have to lose multiple elections to finally change, perhaps. And hopefully campaign finance will speed that along. Campaign finance reform will speed that along. But yeah, it's going to be a messy process, and the end result is going to be maybe worse than what we have right now. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tried to stop the military from recruiting on Twitch, and unfortunately that failed, as we will describe. It was voted down, so the military is back on Twitch, but they swear they're not doing it to recruit. Take a look at this Navy streamer.
Play games, share our stories and our experiences with our entire time in the Navy. We're not here to recruit anybody. We just want to connect with the gaming community and be good representatives of the Navy. But we do realize, right, naturally, when people watch it and they hear all these things, our lives, they might be interested in joining the Navy. And we're happy to point them in the right direction, right? You can go to Navy.com. We've got a link to it on our site, and you can find out everything you need to know about joining the Navy. But for those of you that are under 17, right, just stay in school.
Just stay in school, keep watching us, and literally every 30 minutes, I'll tell you the link to get recruited, and so just spend 2 years doing that, and then eventually, join up. Subscribe. You're not buying it? You're not buying it?
Yeah, like, subscribe, go die for your country in a BS cause.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, military recruitment really gets me. Like, I think it is evil. I'm sorry. I am absolutely, they've always had these tactics, whether it's bringing helicopters or tanks to schools and enrolling people in ROTC from a very, very young age, getting them to sign these pledge cards. They'll roll up with straight video games, right? There'll be entire vans with video games on board that you can play that are just simulators. Yeah. So of course they're recruiting on Twitch, and I think it's disgusting. I don't want to go to a movie and see a Navy ad. It's just one of my triggers. It's not It's not okay. They are not giving you honest information. I don't think there's anything wrong with joining the Navy, but these recruitment tactics are wrong, and they're preying on young people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not new. I mean, it's new on Twitch, but like they literally made a game. America's Army was a game designed to get kids excited about joining the military. And look, I get it. If we're going to have a military and it's not going to have a draft, they're going to do some recruiting, but we get to say where that happens and how predatory it gets to be. And I would say it's basically maxed out on the predatory meter and was before Twitch even existed. So we get to try to fight back against that. Unfortunately, not successfully in this case. But, you know, credit to Jordan Yule for starting this whole thing off when he got banned from one of their streams for talking about war crimes. And that led to the awesome effort by AOC to try to get it stopped. As the vote was happening, she in fact tweeted, "Imagine trying to explain to your colleagues who are members of Congress what Twitch is with a crying face." Have I mentioned that I love AOC and that she's the best? Yeah, they don't understand. They can never understand. People my age I talk to have no idea what Twitch is or why someone would watch someone play video games. They say to me and then turn back to watching sports. They don't get it. And so it was voted down, unfortunately. She did say there was some good news. A majority of the Dem Party supported her amendment to stop that recruiting. She said that's a really solid start for this being the first time this issue has been brought before Congress. We've made great strides since that Senate Facebook hearing. You might remember what she's talking about. But we've got a lot of room to still improve. And that was a hearing where they had like Zuckerberg and others. And like, I swear to God, there were senators asking for tech advice.
Yes.
Like, I have an issue with my monitor
so
and my printer's out of ink.
reset a password?
Exactly.
My current password is capital Z _ 0. Are you writing this down? Like this, yes.
The password to the nuclear launch codes is currently. No one's watching this, are they? Why is it Lindsey Graham? I don't know, but it is.
Yeah, it's gotta
it is
be.
Lindsey Graham. So
it was
that's
very
insane.
much like, "Hey, Mr. Internet Man."
Mr. Internet Man, Joe Internet. And look, I'm glad that she did it. She was incredibly responsive. Supposedly she was already working on this, but it was incredibly responsive to the concerns that were raised almost in real time. And understand, it is having an effect. Several branches of the military, with the exception of the Marines, for some reason, that's interesting, have had esports teams since 2018, and according to military.com, the Army's esports efforts alone generated 3,500 recruiting leads just in 2019. Last week, the Army paused its use of Twitch for recruitment after its channel was criticized for banning viewers who asked about war crimes. That was obviously a temporary ban.
Yay,
but
Jordan.
also, and someone mentioned this in the chat, earlier this month, Twitch told the Army to stop sharing phony prize giveaways on its channel that promised an Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, only for users to be directed to a recruitment page when they click through.
Wow.
So they join the military, and at the end of the day, they don't even get the controller. So that's obviously incredibly dishonest and manipulative and predatory, and it needs to stop. And so more people need to line up behind AOC on this.
Look, if there are not enough people for all of the naval bases around the world, maybe we should consider like closing some of them down. Maybe they're not necessary. Maybe they're spreading coronavirus in Okinawa right now in Japan. Like, just a thought. Maybe we don't need a giant military footprint around the world. I mean, there's other things going on. But hey, that's just me talking. I'm probably un-American.
Probably. You don't think that we should have like comparable military deployments in dozens of countries compared to what the actual host countries have? You don't think we shouldn't be everywhere? Weird.
I guess I don't love this country, but I call it into question.
You do. It's becoming more popular these days, like Twitch. Anyway, Francesca, I can't believe how fast that hour went by. I love starting off the week with you. It's the best. Thank you.
Likewise, John. You're awesome. Everybody, follow me on Twitter.
You're awesome, but more importantly, where can they see more of your stuff?
Instagram at FrannyFio. Listen and watch the Bituation Room. It's on YouTube and Twitch /FrannyFio. And John was on. He was great. We've got had Carlos Maza on to talk about YouTube and why it loves hate speech.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Not the thing, but the episode. Go watch it. Anyway, thank you as always. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Very excited to welcome to the program our next guest, the co-creator of The Daily Show. You might have heard of it, as well as the founder of the Abortion Access Front, Lizz Winstead. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you on. We hear that you've been busy lately. What have you been up to?
You know, you'd think that there is really taking to the streets is just sort of relegated to racial justice work right now, and it's really important. But turns out the anti-abortion forces, patriarchy doesn't take a holiday during a pandemic. It doesn't take a holiday. It doesn't social distance. It doesn't wear a mask. It really doesn't do anything. And so my group at Abortion Access Front decided that where they go, we will go safely. And so there's an organization called Operation Save America, which is sort of the most influential hate group you might never have heard of. And it has been-
I had not, actually.
Right. And so it's been our mission for the past couple of years to really let folks know that the sort of intersections of racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-immigrant behavior kind of leads with this group called Operation Save America. They are the ones who you see mostly outside of abortion clinics with those, big gigantic signs of bloody fetuses. But they're also the people who are leading the charge on the COVID is a hoax front. They are burning Qurans in front of mosques. They're leading the front in deport families at the border because they're polluting America. And I think a lot of folks oftentimes shy away from jumping into the anti-abortion sort of activism because they seem really, really scary. And so their scariness is by design. So people are like, I don't want to mess with them. And it's like, right. But they are also quietly leading the charge against the issues that most people care about in the realm of progressive politics.
Yeah, and look, I get people's fear. I mean, anti-abortion activists, the extremists have committed murders and terrorist attacks and bombings, and it is scary for a lot of people. I thought it was interesting, the most recent week-long campaign that you engaged in was Operation Save America Unmasked. I think I already know without asking, but I'm gonna guess that at their most recent rallies, they're not wearing masks, I would guess.
No, since COVID started, they didn't wear masks. And the thing they were profound. I think a lot of folks don't know that when the pandemic hit and governors and attorneys general from around the country were saying places that are non-essential have to close, they deemed clinics that provide abortion as non-essential work. And every single clinic almost had to sue to say, you can't put abortion on pause. The belly button is not a pause button. Pregnancies move regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic. And so clinics were fighting really hard, and the churches were using this rallying, we're gathering people regardless, and using the pandemic as a rallying cry to say, be even more aggressive outside of clinics, because for example, clinics were taking precautions by having patients wait in their car until they were called into their appointments. So these unmasked people were flocking to their cars and just really terrorizing patients and the people going into work. And so they have been extreme in not only doing it at the clinics, but leading the charge, my body, my choice, which you cannot be pro-life and anti-mask. It does not work. I'm sorry, that is just anathema. So they have a giant annual event every year where they usually gather in a town, and then it's a siege on a town, and they go to the clinics. They will be in parks. They lobby elected officials. They're very, very influential at writing model legislation. And when you hear in the news, like, how did that ban get passed where they say that ectopic pregnancies are actually real pregnancies and you shouldn't be able to get rid of it? It's these people who have gotten one of their own elected into office or have influenced those already elected to create this legislation. So they're not just fringe, they're actually making policy. So they had a virtual conference this year, and we signed up for it, and we attended every one of their virtual seminars, and we pulled the sound clips, and we decided to take a week to expose them with their own words and created a massive website you can go to. It's called osaunmasked.com. And you can see what they did every day, what their calls to action are, who the people are that they're influencing. So many of them are pastors around the country. And it's not just like a Southern thing, it's a Midwestern thing. It's all around the country. So we're hoping that people will get more involved, because we decided this week of action is just going to become part of our activism year round, because it's super important for folks to know what these people are doing.
Yeah, the website sounds incredibly helpful for the many people probably watching this that, like me, hadn't heard about this organization. And so I have a question about that, actually.
Yeah.
Because I cover the legal challenges at the state level, the attempts to shut down the clinics, those sorts of things. And I hadn't heard of this organization. Now, generally, right-wing organizations like this, activist networks that produce model legislation, they want a high profile. They want money and donations and things like that. Are they trying to keep a low profile, or is this a failure of people like me in the media to not pick up on something that's important but sort of in the shadows?
I think it's more of the latter. And I think that I think that there's so much going on in the world right now, and always has been. But I think there's been a failing in progressive politics as a whole to center bodily autonomy and issues around reproductive health and justice as an issue that everyone should care about. I can't tell you how many progressives have said to me, I hope you women can get that figured out. It's so terrible. Women really need to do more. And it's like, we actually all need to do more. And we all sort of need to figure out that if you don't have control over how and when you want to start a family, that is the first step towards 100%, pursuance of your own destiny and the very fundamentals of being a human, right? And so we all kind of need to be in that space of saying, I need to center reproductive care and reproductive access and justice in my work. If I care about human rights, I got to care about that. So I think it's a reframing. And for a long time, you had second wave feminists, being like, men need to butt out, men need to shut up. And it's like, no, men need to listen and support, and we need to embrace that. And so I feel like it's a long reinvention, as well as it is getting folks to really understand that it's not a wedge issue. The Democratic Party has often been terrible at saying, we can compromise on abortion. It's like, really, what part of me making my own decisions about my body is up for grabs? What part of that do you get to step in and say? If the answer is any part of that, then we need to, shut that down.
I try to cover as many different topics as possible, and can partially as a result of that not be an expert on what's been going on with all of them. And I occasionally will take stock of, for instance, how many environmental regulations in total have been rolled back since the Trump administration began, that sort of thing. Like really taking a bird's eye view at the damage that's been done in an area. You've been involved in this activism for a number of years. Going into the Trump administration, what were your fears? Have they been borne out? How does the damage that's been done compare to what you had expected might happen when we were on the eve of Trump becoming president?
Right. Well, it's with abortion, it's so different, because this is an issue that is so state-centric that I think a lot of people ignored it, because, as we know, there was abysmal midterm elections forever of people turning out in midterms and understanding what actually happens in state legislatures. So for me, I've been following this, and terrible, terrible, terrible things that happened while good presidents were holding federal office. As Trump came in, when I saw that he gave Pence the vice president's nod, I knew that we were going to be in trouble, because I know that Trump is somebody who will pawn off anything he doesn't want to do. And he pawned off the number one issue of Mike Pence. And so I knew that it was going to be terrible. When I watched what happened at the Department of Health and Human Services, I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget, that regulations can be as or more damaging than legislation, because HHS can just put in regulations. And at our last count, there was 50 people in top jobs at the Department of Health and Human Services in their varying places that had come straight from the anti-abortion movement with no other experience. And that's everything from the person who came up with the kids in cages policy to FDA regulations, and so that part's really scary. And so I think a lot of folks need to know that. I think Trump having to keep his core base are evangelical Christians, and that means hard line on abortion. And so I think that it bore out worse than I thought. And then you combine all of that with how he has stacked the lower courts, and we find ourselves in a position where if crackpot state legislatures are passing crackpot laws that are challenged, and they go to a crackpot lower court, and then we go to a Supreme Court where my fingers are crossed that John Roberts is somehow going to be my savior, and that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is going to beat cancer for 5,000 times like a superhero. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, understandably so. Yeah, you're totally right. In terms of direct ability to influence these things, Trump obviously doesn't necessarily have a ton, except as you point out with HHS appointments. But he's already gotten 2 Supreme Court justices. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg were to be replaced, either before or after the election by Donald Trump, what does that mean for the future of bodily autonomy?
I think it means that we are in a position where it's going to. I mean, my only hope is he's going to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not with a moderate, not even with anybody rational. It will be with an Edith Jones, or it'll be with somebody who is very scary from one of the scary circuit courts. But what it means is that abortion will fast track through the Supreme Court. And I think a lot of people think that abortion will go away. But what will happen is it'll be a 2-step process. The first thing that will happen is Roe v. Wade will get overturned, which means access to abortion will roll back to the states. And then the states will decide how and if they want to continue making abortion something legal in their state. And then we're going to have a whole world of hurt based on the states that will allow it to be. And then people already struggling trying to get access to abortion are going to have an even harder time of it.
Exactly. Yeah, the women that have to, pay an incredible amount in money and time will have to pay even more to get to a state that actually respects their rights. Lizz Winstead, we appreciate you joining us and all the great work you do in this area.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.